his tale. Then I will tell you mine.
Welcome, Gothamites, to another episode of the Arkham Sessions. My name is Brian Ward. Joining me, as always, is the psychologist to the superheroes, superheroines, and supervillains of Gotham City. And now, sometime in the 1850s, I guess, she's Dr. Drea Letamendi. Hello, Drea.
Hi, Brian. Well,
So
you might be noticing my background if you're watching this video and not listening to the podcast.
Yep. You
Some of
threw
you may
me for a
notice.
little bit of a loop right before we pressed record. We were going to watch episode 6 of Gargoyles, but apparently something that we just watched last night has been haunting you, and you have to discuss it.
So we watched Del Toro's Frankenstein.
Frankenstein, yes.
And I figured what better time and what better way to process what we watched.
It's so funny that you actually said, hey, instead of Gargoyles, do you think we could talk about Frankenstein? Because you and I did not discuss our own thoughts about it after we finished watching the movie.
Correct.
And I thought this was a little suspect, but I didn't question it too much. And then this came up, and I guess it's a good thing because I am still processing the movie. And so now I would like to know what you thought of it. And so I guess this is a really good way of doing it, right? So we're not going to do a watch along like we have been doing because we literally just watched it, and it's a 2.5 hour long movie. So we're not doing that. We just watched it. So I think we could probably really just go right in and start talking about it, and we will save episode 6 of Gargoyles for next time. Wow. Okay, so this really did throw me. First of all, just right off the bat, tell me what you do or don't know about Frankenstein in general.
Well, I think that I'm in my monster era, right?
Yeah.
I've been in my monster era for a few decades.
A few decades?
Yeah, I mean, I know about some monsters. I know monster stories.
Yeah, over the last 4 years, you've gotten a lot more interested in horror in general. You have been bold and willing to watch things that you would not have otherwise watched when you were younger.
Right.
And I remember showing you 2 or 3 of the Universal monster movies probably 4 or 5 years ago when you were first getting into this phase of yours. It always happens in October, specifically. And you'll say, hey, let's watch a creepy movie. And I know I showed you Dracula with Bela Lugosi, and I know 100% I showed you Frankenstein with Boris Karloff.
The original.
The original.
Yes.
But I don't think you probably remember it.
I remember that it's in black and white.
This is true.
And I sort of remember the ending a little bit.
What was the ending of that movie that you remember? And this is not a test to embarrass you. I'm just wondering what you remember about that ending versus
I'm so bad at
what
remembering movies, but I don't think it ends well in the original. I think there's going to be some differences. I think it ends poorly for everybody. Maybe that's just misremembering. Can you confirm?
It ends poorly for him, for sure.
Yeah.
I will say this. That movie, not Frankenstein. There's very little, I'm not going to say very little from the book in that movie, but that is not an an accurate adaptation of Mary Shelley's Frankenstein.
Okay. And that's something that we're going to dive into, because this version of Frankenstein also is not a one-to-one adaptation of the original.
How do you know that?
I know that because I have social feeds, and while I try not to read up too much on those things, there are...
Is that something that's being talked about a lot on social media?
Yes, but I haven't dug into why. So this is a lead into some of the questions I might have for you as far as what are the discrepancies. Mm-hmm. I will say, let me just say this, because for the record,
I'm typing it into the record right now.
For our records, you know, I'm a fan of this director. You know that the Edward Scissorhands of it all, the Abe Sapien of it all, the Hellboy of it all.
You know he didn't do Edward Scissorhands, right?
No, I do. I do know this. I'm saying.
I mean, he did the other two things.
No,
yeah.
And let me clarify.
Yeah.
These are the so-called monsters who I've been companions with in my media literacy.
Okay.
So I love me some monsters. Now, I will confess, I've never loved Frankenstein.
Okay, that's fair.
Like the story.
Yeah.
Nor have I loved, and to be clear, I know that the monster is not Frankenstein. I've not really ever thought about or cared to think about Frankenstein's monster.
It is funny that you just said that. I know that the monster is not Frankenstein.
Well, they're going to come for me if I don't clarify that I know this.
Well, I'm just going to put it out there. And we'll talk about this as it goes on. I think the monster is Frankenstein, but that's all right. You go right ahead.
That shall come up as well.
Yeah.
But the story I want to tell about my life is that I feel as though this is one of the monsters that has been in the margins, and I have been distracted by some other monsters as a monster lover. I'm being careful with my language because this is not a rated R show. So you know what I mean by this.
Oh, okay.
That I love a good monster story, and I love a good tragedy, and I'm probably always going to side with the monster. Now,
like Del Toro.
Absolutely. And I've sort of side mentioned this. I have loved many of his movies, Pan's Labyrinth. I want to say Fish Out of Water. That's not the name of that movie, but I call it
Shape of Water.
Shape of Water, or what I like to call Fish Out of Water. which
Fishman Out of Water.
Which I thought about a lot during my viewing of this film.
Mm-hmm. It is a good companion piece.
I do love the misunderstood, tragic monster who finds a companion in a person who sees them for much more than the ugliness on the exterior.
Yeah.
And so that is what I think the story of Frankenstein is. And that is what I thought coming into the viewing of this film. I do know that this is a story that is meant to be a science horror, like a science horror story, right?
One would say that it's the original science fiction story, that it might be one of the first horror novels, but it's also so much more than that. Also a lot of romance written into the book, the original book. Yeah.
And this is, I'm picking up, as I saw this film, the visual beauty and just the aesthetic is so consuming and indulgent.
It's a Del Toro film.
In a good way, indulgent and just, jaw-droppingly immersive. And it's in its own style. As soon as it started, I realized this is not meant to be any version of like a realistic modern take on, or some adaptation that's going to make a lot of changes to the aesthetic. I felt like this is really the richness and the fantasy of what this story is, how the story is told through Del Toro. So it's sort of mapping on a hyper fantasy version of this, and a hyper romantic version, because I felt this movie was truly romantic, like truly heart-wrenching and emotional. And while there's some violent scenes and some animal grotesque images and scenes that I did not appreciate, I had to turn away from,
But they were hurting him.
I still didn't like it. Still didn't like the animal cruelty, the CGI of it all. But I'll say that did not land to me as horror. That landed in like a fantasy romance. And so
You're talking about the movie itself?
yeah, like
Okay.
just because of how it mapped on these elements, these feelings, it was emotionally heavy first, and then the horror of it all is a deeper psychological experience that's not like a visual experience.
Yeah.
It's more of a heaviness that you sit with. So all in all, I'd say it didn't really land like a horror movie at all for me, even though there are elements of like, you know, medical science related scenes that were grotesque and a bit hard to watch. And I think that's kind of the beauty of what Del Toro wants to engage with us around, that humanity is both grotesque and beautiful, and that this story kind of has us captivated in those mixtures of feelings to the degree that we are no longer horrified by it, where we turn away from it. We're actually pulled in. And I want to admit I didn't watch it all in one sitting because it is 2.5 hours long, but I never felt a sense that it was too long. I never felt a sense of scenes were lengthy or excessive. The story is somewhat of a fairy tale. It's not overly complicated. It has its main parts, pun intended. And I loved it.
And it's told from the perspective of two different people.
That's right. And I don't know if that's how the book is.
We are not watching a linear, well, it is pretty linear, but we're not watching a story that is objective. We are watching two subjective parts of the story. Okay.
Okay, so we're
Before we get it- yeah, before we get
so
in.
we're already kind of getting into some of the questions I have for you. So I'm happy to handle the psychology of it all.
Everyone, by the way, this is going to be spoilery, and the movie literally just came out on Netflix on the 7th. It's been in theaters for a couple of weeks. So if you mind spoilers, maybe watch the movie first. But if you want a really good in-depth psychological analysis of this movie, stick around. And I will say this. Let's just preface this right off the bat. You are going to be analyzing the characters in this movie.
Correct.
You are not going to be analyzing the characters from Mary Shelley's Frankenstein.
We're correct.
Because they are different.
Well, and because I've not read it.
Right.
Confession.
Yeah.
I've actually not read that original piece.
Yeah.
So that raises a lot of questions for me. And like I said, I'm familiar with the idea that for better or worse, with some people upset and others praising these choices.
Oh, none of this is in my feed, by the way.
It's
I've
in my
not
feed.
seen anyone really discussing.
Well, when you're a monster person like me, you're going to have this in your feed.
Like there's just I'm not a
monster
big
lovers.
social media. Like I'm not.
It's not just in my feed, it's in my community. I'm walking around, people are asking me about it. It's
You
in
are?
my world.
Oh.
Yeah.
Not
And
a
so-
single person today at work asked me if I've seen Frankenstein, and now
well,
I'm a little bitter about
That's the
that.
difference between our circles
Yeah.
and the culture I'm in and the culture you're in.
Okay.
I'm in the monster culture.
You-
And you're more than welcome. You're absolutely included.
Okay.
We welcome you.
Okay, I appreciate that.
So one of my first questions, and yes, these are almost like these back-to-back bipolar stories told, two different stories told from the perspectives of Victor Frankenstein and
Or are they polar stories?
and the monster.
Yep.
Who doesn't have a name.
Interesting. That now I'm going to ask you a question.
Yes.
Because this to me is sort of a fundamental point of the movie. Is he the monster?
No.
Or is he the creature?
Semantics.
No, it's not semantics.
It's not semantics, you're right, because actually Del Toro calls him the creature.
The creature. And he is known as the creature throughout the movie.
Yes. So you're correct. And I've heard Del Toro mention him as the creature. And I also understand that in this film, he doesn't have a name. He's never given a name. And so that's a part of the creation of this being that isn't allowed to have an identity by having a name. And that's hugely important. That's already something psychologically that's very impactful on the creature. And I think for our clarification, are we going to go ahead and say Victor when we talk about Victor Frankenstein and the creature when we talk about the creature?
I might code switch. I might go back and forth.
Fine. I know it's, as long as we know who we're talking about.
Yeah.
And that was one of my first questions, actually, was in the book, are there these two different perspectives on what actually happened?
Sort of. Yeah. I mean, and keep in mind, so I've read the book 2, maybe 3 times. I'm sure the first time may have been high school, probably for school or something like that. And I know I've read it maybe twice since then. But I want to make it clear before anyone comes at me in the comments. By the way, like and subscribe.
Well, because my monster community will come for you.
I am not a scholar of Mary Shelley's Frankenstein.
Absolutely.
I have read the book. I think I enjoy the book more than you enjoy the story of Frankenstein in general. So I will say that. I will say that it was easy for me to spot very glaring differences between the book and this particular movie. And if I'm being honest, I am wrestling with it.
Okay.
For the last day, I have been thinking about what I like or dislike about the movie, and if I liked it as an adaptation of the book. And I will say this. As a film, as a standalone film, I liked it a lot. I think it's great, fun, beautiful. Everything you said about Guillermo del Toro, absolutely true. Stunning visually. To me, it's a perfect blend between Shape of Water and Crimson Peak. And I was cool with that. Am I cool with a number of the changes made to the book? Sorry, I shouldn't say made to the book because the book is the same. No, look, hold on a second. Let's go back in history, actually. The book is not the same now as it was written originally. Mary Shelley wrote it when she was 18, or started writing it when she was 18. It was first published when she was 20. She then went back a couple of years later and revised it, and then went back a few years later after that, as her life was getting sort of worse and worse, she revised it again. So even the book has changed a significant amount. But do I think that the changes Del Toro made to the story were good? For the most part, I'm okay with them. There is a major change that I was very unhappy with, but I don't think that should affect anyone's viewing experience of the movie. Okay.
Well, why don't we start from the beginning?
Okay. So the movie starts on a boat, on a ship near the North Pole, and the captain has taken on a very wounded, frozen Victor Frankenstein onto the ship. Frankenstein tells him that they have to leave. The boat is stuck in the ice, and the creature shows up and starts wreaking havoc. They try to shoot it, doesn't seem to hurt it. And Victor tries to explain the story up to that point of what has happened. So we have a little framing device. And that's kind of how the book starts as well, is it's actually the captain who is telling the tale, and then it shifts focus, if I remember correctly.
Well, I think that's a good pathway. It's a good method to kind of get into Victor's childhood, because it's so interesting. He's like, let me tell you what happened to me. And we're thinking, why is this beast following him?
And why are we up in
attacking
the
him?
North Pole?
And then he starts the story about when he was a kid. It's like, oh, you're gonna go that far
Yeah,
back?
it's like, oh, you're taking me all the way back.
Oh,
Like,
you're gonna start
why
from the
don't you just
beginning?
tell me what the big gigantic beast was outside that my men can't seem to shoot and kill?
Yeah.
In fact, I think that's when they actually shoot down into the ice with one of the blunderbusses, and it breaks the ice, and it gives them a little respite from the creature,
Right.
because he sinks into the water, and they think, oh, they killed it. Why don't you tell me your whole
Time
life
for
story?
the story and
Yeah.
and start at the beginning. So he does start at the beginning, and young Victor endures multiple childhood traumas. He is for a while, an only child with a father who is quite...
That's how it works when you have a younger sibling. Is for a while.
I know,
you were an only
but for
child.
a while, he's an
Yeah.
only child.
Yeah.
But it's important because he feels he is rejected by his father. He doesn't spend a lot of time. His father doesn't spend a lot of time with him. He's away on these long trips, and then when he returns, he's cold toward his son. And his mother is his protector. His mother is the strongest bond that he has, and she's warm and compassionate. And she's played by Mia Goth, who will then play a love interest later in the movie. So an interesting choice, very Freudian choice there. And
It's
Victor,
not as interesting a choice if you know the story. We'll get into that.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
will.
yeah.
I think we will. Victor is about to welcome a younger brother, and his mother dies in childbirth. And at that point, that's one of the first turning points as a child, where he realizes it's not that his father is incapable of love or somehow is a poor parent. His father chose to be that cold to him because he sees how different his father is with his younger brother. I almost called his younger brother Esteban, and that's definitely not his name.
William.
William.
Yeah.
Are you sure it's
Yeah.
William?
Yeah, it's William.
So in my world, it's Esteban. No, it's William.
Well,
So-
about that.
I know.
My understand. I was a little taken aback when I heard his father's name in the movie, and I cannot remember what it is. He's played by Charles Dance, and I cannot remember for the life of me what they named him. But in the book, I believe he's Alphonse.
And that's a German name?
There's a lot of Italian stuff happening in the book.
Okay. And in
there's
the film, there's a lot of French and German and general Europeanness happening.
Yeah.
But I digress. Getting back to the psychology of young Victor, he realizes that his father is quite warm and kind toward his younger brother. Meanwhile, he has very vivid memories of his father whipping him and striking him and trying to teach him the science of medicine, which is very formative for young Victor. He's taken an interest in not just medicine in general, but innovative medicine, really pushing the boundaries of the science. And he picked up this interest from his father, who is very talented in this field. And there's a combination of learning and pain that he learns from his father, basically. In other words, his interest, something he's passionate about, is something that also brings him pain.
And it was something that was literally beaten into him.
Yes, his father would strike his face. At one point, he stopped striking his hands because he said, "You're going to need to use those hands because you need to operate. You need to use this in the
You have
field."
now reached a certain age where your hands are going to be very valuable to you later. I'm not going to beat that. I'll just beat your face instead.
Right. And that's his first lesson in vanity, which doesn't work out for him, actually. But in other words, the very thing that he wants to bond with his father around and where he's genuinely passionate about is also the thing that brings him pain and frustration and psychache. And he becomes, and this is now my interpretation, he grows to become fixated on this science, specifically innovative medicine. Now, meanwhile, he grows up, his brother grows up, his father passes away, and the sons are separated. They go to completely different cities. And Victor becomes immersed and obsessed with this idea that he can reanimate, bring people back to life through his innovative medicine. Mm-hmm. And he's actually quite successful in some of his first experiments, and he demonstrates his research in front of his science peers. And rather than get the applause and the accolades that he's expecting to get from his discipline and from those who are quite accomplished in the field of medicine, he is berated. He's told, "This is an abomination. What you're doing is it's not human. It's unholy. You should not be doing this. You should not be playing God." So rather than receive, the praise that his ego's looking for, he gets more punishment. Mm-hmm. And so kind of the same cycle goes over. I would even say this continues to, as a psychologist, I would look back to these moments and say this kind of fuels his obsession. It doesn't take it away. He actually starts to double down on this idea that he is a genius and that these other fools know nothing about what he's trying to discover. Yeah. And it isolates him. It creates this sense of alienation, but it also propels him into this, further into his narcissism, which becomes the main formation of his identity. He sort of becomes this godlike creator. And in his mind, he believes that he is the only one who can do this and that he should do this. And he, and this is where I have questions for you, Brian. He then seeks, he's not financially well off, mm-hmm. so he needs help. Mm-hmm. And he doesn't have friends. He doesn't have family. He doesn't have loved ones. He has to get entangled in bargains and negotiations. And this is where German guy comes in.
Yeah. Herlander?
Yeah.
Is his name? Yeah, Herlander. Played by Christoph Waltz, who is a character completely made up for this movie.
That's what I was going to ask you.
Yeah. He actually sort of takes the place of Victor's best friend, Henry, who is interestingly missing from this film. The Herlander basically, he is... So is this where you want me to talk about this character, or do you want me to talk about the childhood, like...
I think what would be helpful for me is, like, so far, is this what the book is? And I know this podcast isn't just about the differences
Comparing
between,
the two.
Yeah,
but it is important to understand the story that Del Toro is trying to tell within the context of the material from which he drew his inspiration.
It isn't lost on me that this kid who has an abusive, cold father grows up to become somebody who wants to create a child.
Yeah.
A creation from his own self, from his own intelligence.
But he doesn't want to do it the easy way. He wants to do it the hard way.
He doesn't. True. He doesn't want to procreate. He doesn't. It's as if he believes he can do better, and it's that dynamic of my father really messed up, and I can do better. And not only will I do better as a parent, as a creator, but I will actually hand carve my son, my creation. Mm-hmm. And so far, I will say, up till now, up till the creature is even made, up till the point where they're pulling body parts from a battlefield of corpses, up till then, I'll even say, I'm not necessarily not on his side. I see where he's coming from. Let's do this.
You understand the motivation.
Yeah. And I'm not in disagreement. I'm not in misalignment with his choices. When his fellow science peers shun him, I actually felt a sense of like, you know what? Do it in spite of them. Do this thing that you believe you can do. I'm motivated and to watch him excel. But then things turn.
Right. Let's go back to the book.
Yeah.
Little Victor, in a very loving, warm family.
Oh, okay.
None of what you just said is true. In the book, his mother does not die in childbirth. She actually dies of, I think it's scarlet fever, something along those lines.
Wow.
Some illness. She passes away. Father, loving father, actually dies much later in the book because he's gone. He's gone before Victor even starts building his creature. And William, super young, like a child, and so he becomes enthralled by science and the human body and all of that stuff, I think at college, and then proceeds to build his creature. The book actually takes place many, many years earlier than the movie does. The movie actually takes place in the mid 1800s. It's like in the 1850s because we know because the battlefield that he gets his bodies from is from the Crimean War. And in the book, he just goes graveyard to graveyard and just collects body parts.
So he's like a grave robber.
Correct. He is just digging up graves and so it's a very kind of speedy process. In this particular case, he is picking and choosing the right body parts off of the battlefield.
It is meticulous. He's choosy. He's very selective. He has, and again, I'm not sure if this is Del Toro's imagination, but there's this preciousness about creating this body. It's not just slapped together. It is meant to be Prometheus, right? Godlike. He's very selective about how he chooses these parts. And, Del Toro had mentioned, I saw in an interview, he talked about.
Oh, you're already studied up on this movie.
I told you.
I avoided everything. I think I maybe even avoided the majority of the first trailer that came out. I haven't seen anything since until I saw the movie.
So he talked about his own research into phrenology and these early studies.
You know what's funny about that is his head, until he grows hair, reminded me very much of a phrenology head.
The phrenology head, right?
Yeah.
Which in psychology was sort of one of the first, quote, sciences of the mind, was kind of like locating different parts of emotional experiences. And by the way, while the idea makes sense, and later we had some neurobiological breakthroughs that showed some locations were responsible for some things. For
the most part, it's wackadoo.
Yeah, I mean, the simple idea of like the surface of the head and the head shape is not evidenced, but you see that in the final form. You see there's a kind of, I want to say, an art to it, that he's an artist. He's a scientist. He's an artist, and there's something else going on about his ownership, and I really mean this word, his ownership of this creature.
And it's interesting that you said artistry, because, and I don't know if it was meant to be like this, but when you think of Frankenstein's monster, you usually think of stitches and scarring that is just horrendous. And in this particular incarnation of the creature, it's very much, and I think this had to have been intentional, and you would know because you read all the, or listen to all the interviews. It reminds me of, and I don't know the name of it, it's the Japanese art of taking broken pottery and then putting it back together with gold to make it even more beautiful than it was before.
Yeah.
When you look at his scars, they all look perfectly just well placed and almost even to the body. It just sort of, we have taken these body parts and we have just put them together perfectly.
And they fit together almost, again, this is a fantasy version of Frankenstein, the story, because I'll use that word. It's seamless. It feels, the whole is bigger than the parts. You don't see.
I won't say seamless, because you can see the seams, but the seams are beautiful.
No, I mean that figuratively.
I see.
Like the pieces, you don't have one arm that's scraggly and small and another arm is strong. And, this was all, again, very intentional to build a man who is proportional and large and formidable. I think there was something about this creature needing to be strong and hold masculinity in a certain way. And so this is not accidental, right? He chooses parts that he finds, and maybe this is a projection psychologically of who he was not. His father would berate him not just about his lack of intelligence, but his appearance. Mm-hmm. He would tell him his dark hair, his dark eyes. If you've grown up being made fun of for certain aspects of your appearance, and
I mean,
is that familiar to you? Your hair color, for instance. But it's not lacking connection for me that it's Del Toro who emphasizes this. Like, amongst near his blonde brother, you have features that are undesirable. Mm-hmm. And so he grows up to create a creature who is more desirable than he is. And since he creates him, he has this ownership of this beauty, of this strength, of this masculinity. He can kind of live through vicariously through this monster. And I will stress that as much as, and I hate and love Victor, because I loved him for his passion and his drive to push the science. I always love that feature.
And the fact that he's
Oscar Isaac. Yeah. And I'll admit that there were angles in shooting him where I felt like toward the end, especially, mm-hmm. where he looked kind of disproportionate, and not as attractive as he usually looks. And I think that was a choice toward the end. Okay. But what I'm about to say is that he, for all his genius around creating this physical embodiment, living, breathing, potentially talking man he did not put much thought and planning into what he would do after creating that man.
Yeah.
How would he nurture? How would he educate? How would he take care of? How would he bond with? How would he live with? Like, what was it? He had no plan.
And by the way, I will say that is true to the book. The book does paint Frankenstein himself out to be reckless and just completely naive about what this means to himself, to his community, and to the world. And we'll talk more about that, but ultimately he doesn't care either.
He doesn't care. And if that's not a message, I'm not sure if Mary Shelley intended a message about men. Men create but don't nurture. I'm not sure if that was an original theme, but in this movie, to me, it's not the gender of a man. To me, it's not man does this or men do this. To me, it was more of, humans do this.
Yeah.
That humans have the capacity and the genius to create, but there are times where we don't care and we don't nurture and we don't use some of the more deeper connections to take care of others. And I think there's going to be a contrast when Elizabeth shows up. When I know we're going to talk a little bit more about her. But I want to stress that there's all of this grandiosity and narcissism about the creation piece, and so just the fragility of not planning for or dedicating compassion for what to do with the creature once the creature is alive. It's just about what Victor wants to accomplish,
right,
and his own ego, and not about the impact it will have on a being that is made up of all these parts who ostensibly is just born. Like, he doesn't necessarily have the decades of intelligence and lived experience that his parts do, including his brain. So I found that to be the turning point for me, especially when the creature comes to life, that Victor celebrates for just a brief moment, and then the rest of the film is just how awful a person he is.
Yeah. So far, so far what you're getting from Oscar Isaac's portrayal of Victor is correct in terms of even dating back to the book. So I will say that Del Toro has gotten that part right. Keep that in mind. And in the movie, and I realize that we're jumping ahead a little bit. I don't know if you wanted to take us through linearly, but
Sure.
But as we jump ahead a little bit, there are characters that we see the difference between Victor and other people. So Elizabeth, very caring and nurturing, but she is female, and so it plays into that sort of message that you were talking about.
Right.
But also the blind man, DeLacy, is also very caring and nurturing. So Del Toro, at the very least, is not saying that you have that a man has to be this. It's what you're saying is that really humanity does this. Humanity takes care of people unless you are just not human.
Right. Yeah. Well, let's talk about Elizabeth a little bit. Mia Goth plays the love interest of all three of some of our main characters in a way, right? She is the betrothed
niece of Harlander.
Yeah. Oh, four people. Right.
She is the niece of Harlander, the fiance to William, and the object of Victor's desire, as well as the first, I don't want to say maternal figure, but the first
Attachment.
the first attachment that the creature, that's not even true either, because the very first thing that Victor says, or that the creature says, is Victor. Like he
You're
understands
right.
Victor as
You're right.
Papa, like I am attached to you and don't understand why you're not attached to me. But she is what leaves the greatest mark on the creature in terms of loving, sympathetic character, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
For starters, we'll go back to the book for a second, because the moment Victor sees the monster in the book, he like wakes up and the creature's there at the foot of his bed, and he freaked out. He is freaked out and runs, like bolts. There is none of this, all the scenes that we see in the movie of Victor trying to teach him and taking him out into the sunlight and showing him what warmth is, and then getting really upset when he's not learned words fast enough and all that stuff. Victor screwed off. Like he left.
Okay.
And just abandoned the monster. And that to me is super powerful, because while Del Toro is telling this, and I want to be very careful about how I say it, because I realize that this phrase is not correct in your speak.
Okay.
But colloquially, who would create a word like that? That's just so impossible to say. Colloquially, this movie is about the cycle of violence, right? It's about,
Yeah.
and yet the book is about so much more than that. It's on a much broader scale, and this movie brings it down to two people. Basically, it's you got Victor and you've got the creature. Mm-hmm. And everyone else is sort of a pawn in the story of these two people. Whereas in the book, that creature is abandoned the moment it's born, and starts to learn to hate and distrust humanity from the beginning.
But learns, you're saying. So is born without a pre-existing hatred for humans, but learns through witnessing.
Experience that this world is not a good world. And so when we meet Elizabeth in this movie, and she comes to visit and she sees the creature for the first time and begins to nurture it and starts giving it all of that sort of hope for what humanity could be, I can see where that would also be punishing to the creature when she's then swept away. And at that moment, Frankenstein decides to set the place on fire and hopefully kill the creature when he then leaves. But yes, in the book, none of that really happened.
It's a painful montage or series of scees.
Because the creature can only say the word Victor.
Right.
Rather than try to be taught, like Frankenstein spends no time treating this like a newborn. He thought the moment you wake up, you're going to be intelligent.
No, I don't even think that he thought that the creature would be intelligent.
He did say that. He did say, I messed up. Somewhere I messed up in the somewhere in the synapses, like there's a connection that's broken.
Sure.
It's stupid. It can only say one word, and that word is Victor. And she's like, well, maybe that's because when it learned the word, it meant everything to it.
Right.
And so that is the only word it needs. But Victor was specifically angry that he couldn't communicate with the creature more. And so he just locks him up and chains him in the basement.
Yeah, the creature is essentially, I hate to put it this way, but he's treated like an animal. He's nonverbal. You're right. He doesn't have the intelligence that perhaps Victor was expecting.
But he has the unexpected capacity for it.
Well, and Victor, and maybe that's where I'm sort of disagreeing with you, but not, is that Victor doesn't see that capacity.
Correct.
Victor doesn't hold a sense of curiosity and wonder, despite him being a scientist, about the potential for what I'm going to call this young person, this newborn, to be a developing human, right? Who could be verbal, who could be intelligent, who could learn just like a child would.
Yeah.
And if he can learn to say Victor, is it possible that with Victor's patience and understanding and teachings, he could become much smarter?
Yes.
And we know that to be true because we sort of know the story, right? But Victor is, I would say, I'm going to add some words here, shameful and frustrated that he didn't create the perfect being.
Right.
I'll align with you on that. And his choices, because he doesn't know better, is when he's frustrated to beat. So he beats this poor thing. He chains him up.
Which is why I was saying that Del Toro is telling that story of the cycle of violence, because he's now trying to beat into the creature the same way that his father beat it into him. We're now mirroring the relationship that he had with his own father.
And yet, while Victor truly did have the ability to interrupt that cycle of violence, because when the creature first encounters Victor and vice versa, there is the potential for a healthy attachment. Even though it's strikingly horrific to Victor, it's world changing for the creature. What can you really make of that first encounter? They're both in shock. But I would say that Victor planned to create this being. And so he should be responsible for also creating a healthy attachment, probably the first attachment that this creature is going to have. And he chooses to neglect him, punish him, berate him.
But he also doesn't know any different himself. He
disagree
was not
with
raised.
that. I disagree with that.
Okay.
I believe that he would have the capacity to treat this being differently, but he chose a way that was more familiar to him.
I think Del Toro, and I'm not disagreeing with you, I think Del Toro did that on purpose, changed the backstory to Victor on purpose, so that we, the audience, would understand why Victor is the way he is as a father to this toddler.
And it's not until the being is beat that he also gets violent. Yes. He learns violence from his creator. And so you see that same cycle happen when he
lashes out, gets very angry.
He's dysregulated. He doesn't know how to show anger and frustration and rage. So that is how that comes through. So I don't think we're in disagreement. I think what I would say is, just like anyone, Victor would have the capacity for other ways to bond with his creature.
You're using the word capacity, and I agree with you.
Yeah.
I think he has the capacity for it. I don't think he has the emotional intelligence to do it. Partially because he is so brilliant. And as we've established on our show before, sometimes the higher the IQ, the lower the EQ.
Sometimes.
I would
say what's getting in the way here for him, because I agree that he chooses no other way because he knows no other way.
Yes.
He
doesn't have the patience for it.
What gets in his way is narcissism.
Yeah.
That is what I would say.
Hubris.
Is that this creature did not meet his expectations, did not fulfill what he designed.
Yes.
And there's shame behind that. There's disappointment behind that. There's self-doubt and self-hatred. The beating of this being is self-beating. He's beating himself.
Yeah.
That is the extension of his failing. We
should say too that before Elizabeth and William show up together, Harlander, once they've established that the creature is alive, or could be alive, Harlander reveals the true reason for why he is funding this project to begin with.
Right.
And that is, I think it's interesting that it's basically, he's a benefactor to the project, but he expects to then become a recipient, a beneficiary of the project, you know. So in the same way that Victor has the hubris to go and create a man, Harlander believes that he's got the hubris as well and is expecting to be compensated in return by, he reveals that he has a disease, he is terminal, he is going to die, and he believes that with this medical advancement, he can now live forever as well and basically become a god himself.
Right.
Or at the very least godlike. Like he believes that what he is funding is his own immortality.
Yeah.
And
he wants to transcend his unhealthy, syphilis-ridden body.
And Victor says, no, you know your body is ruined. I'm not willing to do this for you because you're an imperfect specimen. And the two of them get into a fight, and Harlander falls down a gigantic shaft. I've still got to figure out, I don't know much about architecture, so I don't know why this gigantic hole was down the center of this building. Unless it was just simply like a smokestack sort of thing.
That's where the conductor was going to go down.
Yes, I understand. But he bought the building because they had that.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, why was that
why did
there?
the building have it?
Why did it have it to begin with?
I don't know.
And there's no railing. Like,
I don't think Del Toro cared.
no, he didn't. He didn't. But he ends up falling down that and dying. And then here's what's an interesting little parallel to the book, although a complete change. Victor then frames the creature for the death of Harlander when William and Elizabeth show up.
Yeah.
So this, I think, is a change Del Toro made intentionally, because in the book, later on, after Victor refuses to build the companion to the creature says, well, then I'm just going to kill everybody that you know and love. And he murders William. And then frames Janice? There's a woman with a J name. He frames her for it by putting a pendant that like a locket that has a picture of their mother in it in her pocket, so that when they find her and they're like, why do you have this in your pocket? You did it.
Okay.
She then goes up on trial, can't defend why she's got the locket, and then they execute her.
Oh my God.
So
Wait, so who framed her?
the creature,
The creature.
the monster. I'm telling Drea,
Okay.
in the book, this monster is murderous AF.
So in this movie, his violence is reactive. It's defensive.
That is one of the problems that I have with the
Yeah.
movie. He never once lashes out or injures or kills unless it is defensive, or unless he's been hurt, or
Or he's
whatever,
protecting
or he's
Elizabeth.
protecting someone else.
Yeah.
In the book, this guy is as bad as Victor.
Right.
And that becomes very important at the end.
Okay.
And it brings me to the thing that I don't like about the movie.
And I'd say, what you just described is what I expected about the original piece, is that he is a monster who's made out of the, there's a psychological likeness between the creator and the monster.
Yeah.
And that his violence will be similar, or actually, and it sounds like worse, that he has truly in the book created a reckless being with no morality, no sense of morality. No?
Well, that's, I guess, how far do we want to go before I reveal this? Because it could change how you view the rest of the movie, whatever. We can talk about it as we get to the end.
Okay.
But the murder of Harlander, I think, is meant to be a parallel to the murder of William in the book.
Okay.
Because he then frames the creature in order to get the public to hate the creature. And it's just one more it's one more injustice done toward Del Toro's creature.
Sure.
Yeah.
And it paints Victor, it furthers Victor's psychopathy.
Yes.
This is a man who so far has grandiose ideas about himself.
Yes.
Now is lying, deceitful, willing to harm others. I mean, he didn't necessarily kill the guy, but he's willing to.
But he slipped and fell, and rather than
he's not taking accountability for
Correct.
that. So and
that is very accurate to the book as well.
Yeah.
Not that particular scene or that moment, but and that's very important for the ending as well. Is his unwillingness, his lack of remorse for anything that he does in the book.
Okay.
Yeah. Let's talk about Elizabeth, because Elizabeth is another huge change in the movie from the book. In the book, she's a toss-away character for the most part. And this is why I said earlier that it's not so weird that Mia Goth plays both characters.
Okay.
So in the book, Elizabeth has been living with the Frankenstein family since she was a child. She's basically raised as the Frankenstein's cousin, for lack of a better phrase. So what's interesting is he's known her his entire life. And by the way, in the book, she is not betrothed to William. She is basically being raised to eventually marry Victor.
Okay. That's what I thought.
So she has been sort of taken in by the Frankenstein family with the understanding that one day you're going to marry Victor, everything's cool, right? And then she eventually, on her wedding night, because the creature says, "Look, make me a companion, or I'm," and then later when Victor's like, "You know what? I decided not to do that." He's like, "Great. Well, then I'm going to come destroy you on your wedding day." And then he's true to his word. On his wedding day, when he marries Elizabeth, he comes in and just murders Elizabeth. There is no touching, like,
yeah.
There is no beautiful harmony between Elizabeth and the creature in the book.
Yeah.
He just straight up is like, "No, I said I'm going to come kill everybody, and I'm definitely going to murder her," and he does. Right. And so this story is written, it's almost as if Del Toro felt like he was going to write Mary Shelley's person into the movie as Elizabeth.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. And I think, when I say that I don't know how I feel about some of the changes, this is one of the changes that I don't mind. Because in the third iteration of the book, it's sort of understood that Mary Shelley took some of her own personality, like her own personal stories and struggles, out of the story. As if to try to, like, maybe protect some of herself from the public.
You mean when she was revising the story?
When she revised the story for the third time.
Interesting.
She then sort of removed some of those pieces of her. And there are people who believe that Frankenstein was originally written as sort of an autobiography of sorts. And then other people who believe that it's a condemnation of science, and other people who believe that it's actually an advocate of science. And then other people are like, well, no, it's just a straight up horror story or a romance. But we do know that by the third iteration of the book, some of the personalness of it was removed, was pulled back. And so I think this is Del Toro putting her back in.
Well, and certainly putting his own romantic spin
Yes.
into this storytelling.
Because Del Toro can't tell a story with a creature without giving him a human woman to fall in love with.
Sure.
But she is rebellious. She's a woman of science. She would rather read books and catch butterflies and do all these things.
Elizabeth is true goth. She's somewhat odd. She studies insect science and is kind of one with nature, and she's a bit eccentric.
Yeah.
And I actually found her very likable. I wasn't sure.
Likable.
I wasn't sure about Mia Goth. I hadn't really seen her. She does a lot of horror stuff that I haven't seen.
I think this is the first thing I've ever seen her in.
I very much
I know
liked
she was
her.
in the X movies or whatever, those movies, but I've never seen any of those. So I think this might be the first thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, so I very much enjoyed the richness of her character. Now, she plays, you mentioned that she's a compassionate individual. She's the character who shows the creature an unfiltered sense of empathy.
Mm-hmm.
Why are you tying him up? Why is he down here? Why are you treating him this way?
Yes.
She doesn't find it justifiable. She's torn about why this creature is being treated by Victor in such a horrific way. And she shows genuine curiosity, and I want to say there is some kind of connection that the both of them have, where they're mesmerized by each other's presence and existence, and I think that's endearing. It doesn't get too weird. I think it's balanced. It stays in a place where it's believable in this fantasy that the two of them would be drawn together.
Yeah.
That these two fish out of water, these two eccentric beings, these two individuals who are still trying to find purpose, are finding one another at this stage in time.
But he doesn't know what he's doing, and is she grooming him?
No.
Is there a little...
because I think there's
I was
gosh,
kidding, by the way.
no.
Yeah.
I will say that the monster is written in this film in a way that I can see, at least in the way that he's, I don't know what I'm trying to say, in the way that he's portrayed, that let me just say this, it's not just about the creature wanting love. Like, I don't even think it's that simple of a story. Mm-hmm. This is, and you named it too, this is a being who's searching for attachment. And this is one of the first things that we do. We look for attachment. And then we look for, once we have attachment, whether healthy or not, then we have individuation. So who am I? What am I? Why don't I have a name? And it's the older man who helps the creature.
The blind man.
He starts to individuate, like, I'm a person, and I can learn, and I can formulate a sense of identity based on what I'm learning and reading.
And he does it inadvertently to begin with.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, because
he's not intending to teach
he's hanging out behind the walls. He is envious of the family that lives here. This is DeLacy. The blind man is DeLacy, and there's a child there that's learning their alphabet, and read this. Yes, yada yada.
Right.
Whatever.
So yeah, I mean, I think I guess I'm.
And that's how the creature is learning. Yeah, is through those interactions without actually being involved. He's observing and learning. And by the way, we should talk about that scene as well. But you were talking about DeLacy being that character that sort of follows Elizabeth's foundation of empathy.
I think what I'm emphasizing here is that this is not a simple story about the creature seeking a companion. which we'll get to.
Yes.
This is about an individual who goes through the same drives that we all do, from attachment to individuation to sense of self, identity formation, to then finding a companion or searching for a sense of, now that I know who I am, I want to spend this life with somebody or some people. I want to have bonds. I want to have
if for no other
sense of
reason than
community.
because he can't find those bonds anywhere else.
Yeah, and that doesn't just come from wanting to love. It also comes from sense of belongingness.
Yeah.
I want to belong.
Yeah.
I want people to see me. Now that I know who I am, I want people to see me.
And that's
for
what
me.
he says in the movie is we can be monsters together. He does not dispute the fact that he is a monster in the eyes of the rest of the world, but he's like, well, but just let me have another monster and we'll just go be monsters
Right.
together. And,
Right.
and that's all we need.
That conversation between Victor and the creature, once the creature kind of, I want to say, didn't self-actualize, but became intelligent, was verbal, had made these connections about his sense of worth to Victor, knowing full well,
Well, and he never knew how he was made before, and then
Oh my gosh,
DeLacy
yeah.
tells him to go back to his home, and that's where he finds the documents and all of the drawings and scientific stuff, and he learns that he has been built out of the dead, which in the book I do not recall him going back to the castle. It really sort of makes no sense. No. Actually, I do remember. He ends up finding those papers in Frankenstein's old coat, which is what he escaped in. Like that's the coat he's wearing when he
convenient.
leaves. And in the pockets of there, he finds this. And when he learns to read, he then realizes, oh, this is what I am. So he never leaves DeLacy. Like in the movie, again, spoiler alert. In the movie, DeLacy is then killed by wolves. That does not happen in the book.
Right.
I think Del Toro felt the need to give us a little, traumatic scene there for a moment. But what happens in the book is exactly what you saw. The family leaves. DeLacy, the blind man, is there, takes the monster in, teaches it, nurtures it, gives him food, gives him drink, gives him a warm place to sleep. The two of them read and discuss philosophy together and all of this other stuff. And then when the family comes back, they're like, no, he's hideous. He's a creature. He's a monster. And they force him to leave. Like they chase him off. In this case, it becomes one of those, once again, I've been wronged and framed, because he went off to the castle, found out who he was, came back. DeLacy's being eaten by wolves, and the family comes home right at that moment to see the creatures sitting over the bloody DeLacy. And they're like, kill it. And then he kills one or two of them and, whatever. And so I was getting aggravated, especially around this scene, with just how much the creature is the victim in this movie. Everything is attacking him and all of that. And so, yeah, I was like, okay, we're really going to play this where he can do no wrong. He's a child in a man's body. He doesn't know his own strength, doesn't know how to not lash out at things, etc. Whereas in the book, he was building up this hatred and fear and anger of humanity. And in fact, so one thing we can discuss with that family in the book, and I don't remember ever seeing an incarnation, maybe in Branagh's, because Branagh's is pretty much a spot on recreation of the book, which kind of makes it really boring. But there's a girl living with that family Safi. And she is, I think one of the sons' names is like Felix or something. And she's basically, she wants to marry him. And there's this whole story about her where her father is a Turk and her mother was an Arab Christian, and she died, and the father was incredibly cold and mean and abusive and wanted to like marry her off to a harem, and she escaped him, and the DeLacy family took her in. And through all of that, the creature is watching and is like, I know empathy because I know what she is feeling, this feeling of not belonging and being an other. And so like all he wants is to be part of this family because he's like, they took her in, they might take me in. And none of that is ever addressed. And I was a little disappointed because I thought surely somebody like Guillermo del Toro is going to tell that story. And instead, once again, she's completely left out, and it just becomes an opportunity for a family to attack the monster, if that makes sense. So like in the book, there are all these little moments of subtlety and nuance and moments that make the ending more powerful, because he's not, as you were saying, you were suggesting that like, oh, he has no moral compass, like, oh, in the book, he has no morality. Actually, no. It seems like this with Safi that you then go, oh, no. He gets it. Like, he understands more what it means to be human than the humans do, than Victor and all of that, because Victor shows no remorse whatsoever for anything he has ever done over the course of the book. And the creature is now sort of, whether he knows it or not, learning about, oh, I feel bad for that person, and that person's like me. And like, we could all be family together. Like, oh, what I wouldn't give to be in this cottage with them instead of like sitting back watching with the mice, or whatever. And so I thought it was a real opportunity that Del Toro didn't even examine what it means to be an other the way that the book does.
I just wonder if Elizabeth is kind of the replacement for that little girl,
right,
in this romantic version of the original story, where he finds, because she gives him empathy and understanding and sees beyond the disfigurement, he could also learn to be empathetic toward her, because I think there's something about them bonding over being somewhat different than society.
Yeah.
And I'm not, I actually did not read that. I don't know if that's the case. I don't know if Del Toro said this, but I think that, because I know there's a little girl in the original story, and there's like only a little girl in the cottage in the middle of the woods that gets not a lot of time in this.
But then there's the drowning girl that also is in the book, where he literally saves the little girl from drowning, and the father mistakes him thinking that he's trying to kill her, and he attacks the creature, which again just sends the monster on like this outrageous murdering spree.
I mean, I think that there's a lot of purpose around that time he spends with the family, but specifically with the older gentleman who is vision impaired, because the man treats him like any other. In fact, he welcomes him into his house. This is such a different experience than his own creator. Doesn't matter where you came from, where you've been. Please come and sit with me. let's tell stories together. Let's break bread together. Doesn't matter our differences. And that is what the creature really needed to learn. It was yearning to learn from humans, not the destruction and the violence and the neglect, but could I actually receive love and kindness from a human being? And apart from Elizabeth, this is another figure, another critical attachment that he has. And you're right. It's also when he learns that his own creator wanted to create a monster, how he was built, how he was designed. And that's one of my favorite scenes. There's two scenes that I really loved. And one was how he describes his own origins, that he was a wreckage, that he's meant to be an abomination, that he's not created out of love at all. He's an experiment.
Yeah.
He's tossed away. He's nothing. And it's heartbreaking, but it also is, I'm going to sound like a psychologist saying this, but the man has given him the space, the man has given him the validation for him to say those words out loud. For the creature to say, I feel worthless. I feel unloved. I feel a lack of belongingness. And I'm able to finally, one, articulate this with words, but express how I feel to another person who might understand some of what I'm feeling. Mm-hmm. And that is such a moment that I just really appreciated from the film.
Sure.
And the other moment is a little bit later when the creature confronts Victor with demands. Now, this is quite an aggressive move, and it's right before the wedding between Elizabeth and Victor's younger brother.
Yeah.
And it's scary. It's a fight, but the creature has I think you said it. It was like, make me a companion and we'll be monsters together.
Yeah.
And I kind of gasped, like, wow, that's where he's at with his sense of acceptance with who he is.
Yeah.
And also this sense of leverage. Like, I still have power. I have power of rage. I have power of vengeance. I have physical power.
And by the way, I can't die.
Okay, so tell me about that.
That's not...
This whole regeneration thing.
I don't remember... Again, it's been a while since I've read the book. I don't remember there being anything about I can't die. Like, I don't remember that. I'm not saying it's not in the book. I just don't remember him suddenly becoming immortal.
Okay.
In fact, it would kind of make little to no sense because of what he tells the captain at the end of the book. But no, I don't think there is a... I could be wrong. Again, I'm not a Frankenstein scholar.
I think you're right.
But I don't think he can't die.
I've never heard this before. And it sort of doesn't make sense. And I want to say, I guess Del Toro makes it work in the sense that someone who's basically invincible, this character is not empowered by this. This is yet another trauma and tragedy of his existence that he can't even wither away. He can't even go away into non-existence.
I can't die, yeah.
And that, rather than empower him, it actually becomes his suffering.
I didn't ask to be born. Now all I want to do is die, and I can't.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So at least make me a monster that...
Yeah,
at least
give me a companion.
Which does happen in the book. He does say, look, make me a wife, and we'll go in the mountains and live together and whatever. And the difference between the book and in the movie is that Victor does start to, like, he makes him a companion, but rather than bring her to life, he then ponders on it. And that's when he says, like, these two are going to procreate. Like, that's gross.
Yeah.
And he gets the ick. And then he decides, well, I'm not going to do it anymore. And so
the way, and in the movie, the way that because he doesn't contemplate it in the movie, but
he just comes right out and says, but then you guys are going to do it.
Yeah, the way that he devalues
and
diminishes the creature's wish. Like, the thing that you want is grotesque. The
Yes.
thing that you want, you don't deserve. The thing that you want is unnatural.
Yes.
You're not going to do it the way that humans do it. What are you going to do? Build a family, build a home, live happily together forever? That's not for you. I mean, that was very biting. That was a stab. And just like the two of them physically assaulting each other, this is how they fight one another, is their character and their personhood. And I will say, because I haven't criticized this film at all, right? But I will say what I felt was slightly a little too heavy-handed was the mentioning of Victor being the monster. Like, we all get it.
By William?
Yeah, like, William is a casualty of the violence that ensues between
on the wedding day.
Yeah, the creature and Victor. And before he dies, Victor's little brother says, like, you've always been like this. Like, you destroy things. You are the monster. And while I like that it's being told to Victor, I think it's too on the nose, right? It's like, we get it. We've been watching. Have you not been seeing this? Like,
yes.
This guy's awful.
And in the book, it's funny because in the book, the monster is like, hey, kid, back up. Like, I'm not going to hurt you. Why would I hurt you? And then the kid's like, do you know who I am? My father's a Frankenstein, whatever. And he's like, I'm sorry, a what? And once the monster realizes, oh, you're part of that family, I'm going to have to kill you now. And he does. And he's just like, oh, if only you had not told me that your last name was Frankenstein. But now, because I know it is, going to have to kill you. And he does. And then blames it on, I think it's Justine. And then he just straight up kills Elizabeth. But in the movie, they play it off so that actually it's Victor that kills Elizabeth, who he then blames the creature again by basically being like, oh, he attacked her or whatever. And he shoots, she jumps in the way. And then the creature like takes her off to some cave, and she basically professes her love to the creature.
Did she jump? So did she jump?
She
in
jumped
front?
in the mid. She jumped in front.
It wasn't accidental that she was just there. Like,
no, she leaps in front of it.
She leaps into the
Yeah, because he says, "Get out of the way," and then she turns around, sees that he's got a gun, and right as he pulls the trigger, she jumps in the middle and gets shot.
Got it. Okay.
And then he carries her off, and she, while gut shot, waxes poetic about how much she loves him and how much, oh, the world is taking us away from one another too soon, but I was never meant to be here in this world anyway. Like, all right. Okay. Did you like that scene?
I did.
Okay.
Yeah.
All
I
right.
liked it a lot. I liked that there was a cave down there.
Sure, the cave.
Under the house.
I'm fine with cave. I'm fine with cave. I didn't need her to like. I mean, she was right there. There's a whole family of doctors in the house, and he took her to a cave and laid her on a slab, and then she just died there.
It could have been an overinterpretation, but my guess is that at some point when she saw the creature, she realized she didn't want to get married to William after all. She didn't want to get married to Victor after all.
No.
Because there was a point where she was a bit taken by Victor earlier in the film.
Yeah, but it was for only a minute.
Correct. But I think what I'm saying is that it's as if none of those futures were desirable anymore.
Yeah.
And this was a fate that she was willing to. This is kind of the tragedy of her story, is that this was the fate she was willing to accept.
Yes.
Knowing that she at least had some time with the creature, and recognized something meaningful for her in the world. Because again, she's also going through the stages of individuation, finding purpose, finding companionship, all the things that all of us want to do. I wish there was actually more of her in the film. It's too bad that she's, I somewhat agree with you that it felt kind of a little cheap that she died this way, but I see why it needed to happen.
Yeah.
The end of this film is interesting to me because, and again, huge spoilers here, but it's Victor who dies from the wounds and who has one last moment with the creature to atone.
In the boat, like on the ship.
Yeah, and he does say, he says the words, I'm sorry. And he says, I need my name. Like, I need you to say my name. I need you to
say it the way you said it when it meant everything to you.
I need to acknowledge that I'm not just a design of my father, a horrible person. Just like you're much more than just my design, my making. You're above and beyond that. So give me my name. Give me that sense of validation and value that I'm not just this thing that my father hated. And while I liked that, I think what I would have liked more is giving the creature a name. Wouldn't that have made more sense?
Sure.
But I think this also tells me this isn't so much a story about the creature. This is a story about Victor.
Yeah. So I was so bothered by the end of the movie because in this moment, I felt like Guillermo del Toro missed the point of the story itself. Up to this point, and again, in the context of the movie as it is, it's fine. It's a fine ending. In the context of what the story was originally meant to be, the philosophical question of what makes a monster, is it a creature born as an abomination and goes on murderous rampages because of the way the world's treated it, or is it the world that has treated him this way? And in the movie, the creature forgives him before he dies. Straight up says, I forgive you. I release you of this burden. You can go now. Whatever. In the book, he goes up to the ship and Frankenstein's dead. And he's like, the creature apologizes to Frankenstein.
Okay.
And says, and this is why it's so important, the creature has remorse for all of the bad stuff it's done.
Yeah.
And it acknowledges it. And is like, and I was so bothered by the line as the creature's getting up and says, maybe now we can both be human.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I don't think that's true at all. Because what Del Toro did was it stripped you of your cruelty.
Yeah.
He took away, he made you perfect and a victim. And so you have no idea what it means to be human. But in the book, the monster comes to Frankenstein and says, I am sorry. Forgive me for all the things I did to you and to your family. You hated me for misdeeds that I didn't even do. And then I lashed out and destroyed everything. And that's why we're both here. And the creature apologizes. And Victor dies never once feeling remorse for any of the stuff he did throughout the entire course of the book. And so the whole point is to say, Victor was the monster, not you, because you now understand what you've done.
Like you recognize the faults of one of the biggest faults of being human is the cruelty.
Yes.
Is the some of the human tendencies to have rage, to have anger, to have jealousy, to have hate.
And then he leaves, in the movie, he leaves I guess to just go sort of wander the earth by himself.
And did you notice? Yeah, that was an interesting ending because he's let the captain lets him leave the ship.
Mm-hmm.
He goes and he looks into the sun, and the image is reversed.
Yeah.
So I don't know. You're much more kind of like cinematically thoughtful than I am. I don't really know what that means. That the very last shot of him with his face toward the sun is actually a reverse shot.
Like it's in reverse, or
Yeah.
it's
like his no.
it's in reverse.
Yeah, like his.
I might have to go look at that. I didn't notice that.
Horizontally reversed. So
Well catch, or well caught.
his scars are in the wrong direction.
Interesting. I didn't notice that.
And I didn't know if that meant like. I mean, gosh, that could be a mistake, but it could be a mistake.
I mean, it could have been, like, crap, the sun's over there. They're going to have to flip him.
Yeah, like it's the North Pole. We shot it this way. But it could also, if that were a mistake, it could be digitally fixed, right?
One would think, yeah.
Or does it mean something more? Like
it very well could. It very well may,
is-
yeah. Like, things are now reversed. Whereas at the, again, as he leaves the ship in the book, he tells the captain, like, I'm going to go put myself on a pyre now, and I'm just going to go light myself on fire. Like,
jeez.
Like he knows. Like, it's tragic from beginning to end. But he's like, hey, now that I've realized that I was a that I was a monster, and that I did these horrible, and my creator's dead, I'm just gonna go kill myself. And then and you're like, that's sad. But yeah, so to me, the ending of Del Toro's being romantic and exactly everything Del Toro is, which is someone who needs to see redemption and humanity and all that stuff, was upsetting to me. But overall, I enjoyed the movie quite a lot, regardless of the differences.
It seemed like you knowing the differences didn't work in your favor to see this the way that someone like I would see it. Whereas, I didn't have those pre-existing ideas and story beats.
Sure. But at the same time, like I said in the beginning of this episode, if I'm judging this movie based on just a standalone story, great movie. As an adaptation, didn't love it. But as a standalone story, Del Toro, great job. You're going to win an Oscar. We're not sure what yet. It's not going to be Best Picture, and it's not going to be Best Director.
Oh my God, rude.
I don't think. I'm just judging based on the Academy, based on the old people who vote in the Academy. But I do think like this is going to get like a Best Adapted Screenplay. It's going to get Best Production Design. It's going to get Best Visual Effects. Like it's going to get nominations like that for sure.
And it's going to get a squeakquel. For sure. Because he survived.
He survived. There's
got to be a next movie.
Hey, look, if James Whale could make a couple of, if he made Frankenstein and then Bride of Frankenstein, there's no reason why Del Toro couldn't make, something along those lines too. It sounds like you really enjoyed the movie and you really appreciated the story and the themes of it a great deal.
Oh yeah. The only thing that I didn't appreciate about the movie was some of the lines were a little heavy-handed.
Yeah.
And I sometimes think show don't tell, and they showed. They didn't need to tell, right?
Yeah.
So aside from that, it was near perfect for me. I really enjoyed it. I'm
going to have to watch it again just to let it really just wash over me.
Yeah.
And I think I'll appreciate it a lot more. Drea, this was fun. I appreciate you throwing a curveball at the very last second. Next time, I'm going to look forward to watching an episode of Gargoyles with you. Until then, I want to go ahead and thank our patrons for making this episode and all of our episodes possible, including Mike Ficklin, Lindsay B., Dr. Jerome Anderson, Antonio Lopez, Christopher Daly, Hero's Journey Fitness, Todd Stashwick, Brian Kerr, Ben Martin, Mark Pepper, Frank Moeller, Swara Sali, Trevor Schwartz, Jamiroquai J and SK, thank you all so much. You can get your name called out by going to patreon.com/Arkham Sessions and joining the $5 tier. We've also got a number of other tiers that get you other things like episodes early and full watch-alongs. Just be sure to go over to patreon.com/Arkham Sessions for that. Drea, why don't you tell the good folks where they can find you online?
You can find me on my website, drdreapsychology.com, or on socials at Dr. Drea Psychology.
You can find me on Instagram. I am at B_Ward028, or you can find us both on Instagram at the Arkham Sessions. Come email us. We are arkhamsessions@gmail.com. Follow us on Facebook, all that fun stuff. We're also on the threads and the Discord. You can find the link there on our Instagram page. And go follow our family over at Fanbase Press. They would love to have you, and you're going to love their news, their comics, their podcasts, you name it. They are a one-stop shop for your entertainment needs. That's Fanbase Press. Till next time, I'm Brian Ward.
I'm Dr. Drea Letamendi.
And together we are
the Arkham Sessions.